The end of another long week is here. That means it's time for the Left of Lansing Friday Short with Pat Johnston.
Here's the Friday Short for March 6th of 2026. We've been spending lots of time on the important Democratic Senate primary race for Michigan's U.S. Senate seat on the show, and rightly so, since, it is one of the races to see if Democrats will send more of the same corporate establishment-type Democrats who are bought by AIPAC to Washington, or if we'll actually send someone there who will represent the working class while taking the battle to the Epstein class. That being said, there is a MAGA Republican candidate who hates government so much that he loves running to be part of said government. Of course, we're talking about the pathetic Florida Mike Rogers, who's trying for the second time in 2 years to become Michigan's other U.S. Senator and trying to become the first Republican to win a Senate seat in the state since 1994, when your esteemed host was a freshman at Central Michigan University. Yeah, a long time ago. Now, if you recall, during his losing race against Democrat Alyssa Slotkin in 2024, we put Florida in front of Mike Rogers' name because after retiring from the House of Representatives, he skedaddled out of Michigan to live in Florida for a number of years. Why Florida? Because that's where Florida Mike made big cash being a lobbyist. Florida Mike used the connections he made while a congressman to advise companies on issues that he covered during his time as a congressman. That revolving door of corporate and government greed and corruption, otherwise known as the Epstein class. Now, Florida Mike made thousands giving speeches, which I know many former government officials do. I bet Kristi Noem will be doing that soon. But he also, according to Business Insider, made nearly $2 million in income from board positions at tech companies and cybersecurity firms during those years, with assets totaling as high as $17.5 million. Well done indeed there, Florida Mike. But what's also interesting is that as a Michigan congressman, Florida Mike Rogers championed so-called cybersecurity legislation that would have allowed your government to obtain personal information from private companies for supposed security reasons. Thankfully, that bill never passed, but isn't it just dumb luck that Florida Mike started working for big tech pro companies right after leaving Congress? It just happens sometimes. Rogers also lived in Florida for nearly 9 years and didn't have a house here in Michigan until, of course, he decided to run for the Senate in 2024. Now, Florida Mike is hoping after a couple of years have passed, that working-class Michiganders will forget about leaving Michigan to become a rich lobbyist in Florida. Besides, if voters forget, they can't ask Mike, hey, who says the government doesn't create jobs, right? But this time around, not only does Florida Mike Rogers have to defend his pitiful record, but he has to defend the grifting and authoritarian Trump regime, which is failing a working class that dear leader Trump promised he'd help. The latest job numbers report shows that we lost 92,000 jobs last month, and the revised numbers from the last few months show that we experienced the slowest job growth ever since COVID. Now, tax cuts for corporations and the Epstein class from the MAGA Republican Big Beautiful Bill, or as I call it, the MAGA murder budget, those were supposed to lower prices and create all of these working class jobs. Same with dear leader's insane tariff scheme, which is decimating Michigan's economy as the auto industry, farming, and tourism have all taken massive hits. There's been no rebirth of manufacturing, and make no mistake, Florida Mike Rogers is anti-union as well. Florida Mike is all for Trump's war on Iran, since we, the taxpayers, will help pay for defense and weapons contractors and also big tech contractors, while Florida Mike tells us that Americans must die for a war we never needed to do, and also for Israel's right-wing extreme government's wars. And then there's this. From the Detroit Metro Times' Steve Neveling, Florida Mike Rogers received over $21,000 in campaign contributions from the Maroon family. You'll recall the billionaire Maroon family owns the Ambassador Bridge, and for years they have had a monopoly on international travel from Detroit to Windsor, up until the Canadian-funded Gordie Howe Bridge got built, a bridge that'll break up that monopoly, and a bridge that'll help Michigan economically. But Florida Mike showed his true colors once again as he announced his support of his dear leader's decision to block the opening of that new bridge after the Maroons talked with the Trump regime. And the Maroons also gave lots of campaign donations to MAGA-related activities. So when it comes to protecting the billionaire Epstein class or working class Michiganders, come on, you guys knew where Florida Mike Rogers would fall. Same with how Florida Mike is going to brush aside allegations of sexual abuse against dear leader, or how he's been found liable for sexual assault, or how the Trump regime's been working to protect protect those who took part or knew of Jeffrey Epstein's child sex crime ring. Must be nice to turn a blind eye to all that criminal activity. Florida Mike recently called this the golden age for America. Do we, working class Michiganders, feel like we're living in the golden age? Florida Mike does, though. And why wouldn't he? He and the Epstein class that he represents are doing great in this corrupt K-shaped economy. Florida Mike is going to run on telling Michiganders that we're living in the golden age. Not sure how that'll work out, but I can't wait to watch it. leftoflansing@gmail.com is the best way to reach me. Follow me on my socials, subscribe to the show on the YouTube, and subscribe and give a good 5-star review of Michigan's premier progressive podcast. And please visit us on Patreon and consider a small donation to the show. Take the battle to them.